Okay, I'm gonna switch to English. Every question, let me know. I'm going to use my cell phone. If you want to use, for example, the what the chat in WhatsApp for you to send your questions or any idea related to that. Okay, so let's start right here. So the chapter number 3 is going to be related to the methodology, right? So for Lena, I think this is going to be a review, right? So you're going to have even fresher your ideas. Okay, so what is expected to be inside the third chapter? So here, what they're going to do, is going to be talking about two things. Number one, the nature or the approach you're going to use, and then the design related to the methodological part you're going to implement inside the research. Okay, so let's remember that there are going to be two ways for you to do this procedure. Number one, that is going to be just qualitative, and the other one that is going to be quantitative. In the qualitative, we're going to find some characteristics related to probabilistic data. What is going to be probabilistic data? That you can control the data, right? But in the qualitative one, you're going to find non-probabilistic. What is that? That everything can happen, right? Therefore, we're going to talk about some other issues related to the respondents of the study. Therefore, we're talking about the population, followed by the participants, followed by the sample. What is the sample? What is which are the participants? What is the population? I'm going to give you those ideas, okay? Then the research instruments related to the protocols you're going to create for you to gather the data, for you to collect that data, and then the treatment of the data, but this is going to be just related for the next semester. Okay, so what to do right here with the, give me a second. Okay, so give me a second. Okay, so what to take into account right here in order for us to create the methodological part. Okay, so as you know, every chapter is going to contain some introductory paragraphs for the reader to know, to get to know what to what to take into account, or yeah, what to consider, or what to be considered inside the this chapter. Okay, so everything related to if it is going to be just qualitative, mixed, or if it is going to be or if it is going to be just what, or if it is going to be just sorry, qualitative, quantitative, or mixed, right? So what is mixed approach is going to be a bit of both, a bit of quantitative, a bit of qualitative. Okay, so what to take into account when writing this? Okay, so you're going to talk about, so for example, the methodology of the study, the subject, the sampling technique, the research instruments, the procedure in which you're going to treat the data, right? And that's it. Now, for the research methodology, we're going to talk about, so for example, if it's going to be just what kind of research you're going to use, quantitative or qualitative. Therefore, we're going to talk about, or we're going to say, for example, if it is going to be just descriptive, if there is going to be a correlation, or you're conducting some experiments, or you're going to do a documentary analysis. Okay. Regarding to the subjects or the respondents of the study, is for us to talk about, or for us to say, for example, the way in which we're going to select the population, sorry, the sample. Okay? Okay, so cool. How to choose the sample? What do you know about that? Choosing the sample.
¿Cómo le quito esta luz aquí a esta luz? Aló, no, no. Teacher.
Sorry. Okay, so that was my question. What to take into account, or what do you know about selecting the sample?
I was looking for some information and I found different types.
Okay,
So the first one is simple random sampling.
okay,
Individuals that represent the population.
yes,
Also, I found a multi-stage cluster sample.
mm-hmm.
The researcher chooses a sample in two or more stages. It's difficult to obtain a complete list of members of the population.
Okay. What else? Nothing else? Okay, what you said is right. Okay, so we have right here this one that is going to be the Sloan's formula, but um, too much maths in order for us to determine what is going to be the sample size, right? Okay, in terms of what I have learned through through my master degree, um, so what I learned through my master degree is going to be just selecting just the 60% of the participants, right? So therefore, if you have, for example, let's say 20 students in one classroom, so choose 12 students. That's it, right? So if we do this kind of math, if we do this kind of math, sorry, computer is kind of slow. So let's say that we have, for example, 20 students, right? And we're going to try to look for the 60% of the population. That's it. 12 students. So let's say, for example, in our classroom, let's suppose, well, the one that we have in one that I have in ninth semester, in which I have 29 students, right? But I'm going to look for the 60% of this. Therefore, I'm going to look for 17.4 students, right? So make it 17. So 17 students are going to create the sample you need about that. Some other experts, they say that you need to work with just the 50% of that. So let's say once again, so the 50% is going to be 14 students, maybe 15. So let's say 14 students in order to do so. Okay, good. Now, this is going to be just one idea in order for us to determine just the sample, the numbers inside the sampling, right? What we have right here related to random simple sample, right? So what is going to be just selecting randomly? What do you understand about that?
Teacher, what I understood, or one of the characteristics, is that assign a number for each participant and
Uh-huh.
then use a random number table.
That's it. So for example, you're going to say, or you're going to make it, yeah, you're going to make it quick, right? And give me a second, because I want to to test something. Oops, oops. Got it. So I'm using my cell phone in order to see your interaction on who's talking. No, better. All right. So as we can see right here, so it's going to be, for example, let's say we're going to play the game with some students, some participants, and these participants are going to have a number, and then you're going to put it into a bowl, or maybe you're going to play with this kind of cage, circular cage that is designed for bingo, right? Or you're going to put, for example, just names inside the bag, and then in a piece of paper, inside a piece of paper, and then you're going to start selecting the participants right here. So that's going to be just the simple random sample. Okay, so easy, right? So this could be the other way. Okay, the other one is going to be just stratified sampling, right? So as we see right here, the stratified sampling, I'm going to read it, is possible when it makes sense to partition the population into groups based on a factor that may influence the variable that is being measured. These groups are then called strata, and individual groups is called stratum. So with stratified sampling, one should partition the group into groups. So for example, as we know, inside the group, we're going to have heterogeneous um, participants, right? So it's going to be composed by, let's say, students from the northern coast, students from Santander, students from, let's say, Boyacá, Llanos Orientales, yeah, the Wild East, from Amazonas, from the Pacific part, then the Andean part, right? So we can create groups based on that. Okay, easy and pure like that. Now, from those groups, we're going to do the following thing: obtain a simple random sample from each group, right? So let's say from the Andean group, I'm going to select one student. From the northern coast, I'm going to select one student. From the Orinoquia, from the Amazonas, from the Wild West, from the Wild East, sorry, from the what? The yeah, from the Pacific part. So you're going to choose one member. We can call this like a monitor or leader in order for them to show what they have been working on. Then finally, collect data on each sampling unit that was randomly sampled from each group stratum. Right? So let's make it in this way. Okay. Let's say, for example, we're going to work with religions. Okay. So let's say right here we have first group that everyone believes in something, right? Then here we have Catholics and we have Protestants, right? And from here, from this group, we're going to get just two members or only one member. Same thing right here. Okay, let's talk about food. Okay, those people who like food. So here, everybody likes food, right? Okay, cool. Here, those who love just meat-based products. Here, those who like only vegetable-based what products here. And from those stratified sampling, right? So right here is the stratum, sorry. Here we're going to have our stratified sample, and then we're going to have just two or one volunteers for them to share what they know about what we have been working on. Okay? Then we have the purposive sampling. As we know, this is going to be a non-probability sample. Why is it non-probability? Because we don't know which are going to be just the probabilities that are going to be expressed or shared here. Okay? Okay, nice. So here, as we see, this sample is selected based on characteristics of a population and the objective of the study. So the purposive sample is also known as judgmental, selective, and subjective sampling. Purposive could be cataloged as convenience, right? Convenience sampling. So for example, let's say I need to work with the two less advanced students and the two most advanced students, right? Well, actually, I say the two less advanced students in order to not hurt feelings, right? So if you know what I mean. So it's going to be like that. For example, when I conducted my thesis, that was what I did. It's just like, okay, I need students that they're not going to quit the what the they're not going to quit from the sorry, they're not going to quit from the course, right? And it was like that. And number one, number two, I need students that they're going to be constant delivering the assignment, and it was the other factor, and that's all. So here, for example, you see the purposive sample right here. So the ones that you know that they're going to give you uh, very good data for you to analyze later on. Okay, so once you have chosen the sampling technique, so once again, it could be random, purposive, stratified, whatever, because Christensen and Burke Johnson, they say that you have some sampling, right, techniques, and Creswell, he talks about the same, but maybe he differs on one of two aspects, and Hernandez, and Baptista, they talk about two more aspects, right? And that's it. Okay. Research instruments. Amazing. What do you know about research instruments? No? For example, you have right here questionnaires, that these questionnaires are going to be purely quantitative. You have tests. Tests are quantitative. But you have interviews and observations. What do you know about that? Guys, give me a second. I'm going to deactivate my microphone for 2 minutes because I'm having an issue right here. Okay. But in the meanwhile, I want you to tell me or to look information about research instruments. Okay. No habla, sino que grita, mamá. Sorry, I was dealing with some issues right here. Okay, can you listen to me? People, can you listen to me? Guys? Ah, okay. So, okay, guys, can you listen to me? Hello? Hello? What happened here? Hello, can you listen to me? Guys? Hello?
Yes.
Okay, cool. I had to move myself to another location of my house in order to what? To improve my connection. Okay. Okay, as I was telling you, I'm going to share my screen again.
Profe, yo creería que es mejor por otro medio. No sé,
Is
está
it
fallando mucho.
failing?
At
Okay.
least. Yeah.
Uh, let's try Jitsi.
Okay.
Yes, pero
Okay. So I'm going to send you the link via Jitsi. Okay, for you to log in. Okay, not here. Okay, let's say Jitsi. Oopsie. Okay, so away from the technological issues, we're going to continue. Okay, so as I told you before, we're talking about just the research instruments, and the research instruments right here, they're going to be just related to um, this kind of instruments, right? So, for example, that are going to be just related to questionnaire, tests, interviews, observations, etc. Okay.
Just a kid.
Okay. Um, so one of the issues right here for us to start implementing this instruments is going to be just to take into account the way in which we're going to collect the data. Okay. So therefore, when you're designing these protocols, you have to take into account one little aspect. Number one, how often are you going to implement this instrument? Okay. So for example, if you're going to, if you have planned to conduct this instrument, for example, twice or 3 times or 5 times, and how much time per week, right? If it's going to be just, if it is going to be just an observation, so how many observations are you going to conduct? So those things or those issues, they need to be clarified when you're designing these instruments, okay? How many questions per instrument? So for example, if we're going to try to say that you're going to use a semi-structured interview, but this semi-structured interview is going to contain, for example, 10 questions, right? And these 10 questions are going to be answered by, let's say, 29 people. So you're dealing with 290 answers that you need to analyze. So that is why you need to shorten these questions. So therefore, let's say if, for example, you're going to create 5 questions, right? Or let's say 6 questions in one interview, but these interviews, they're going to be subjected or going to be answered by, let's say, 14 students. Eureka, you have only 84 answers to analyze. So from 290 to 84 questions. So that is going to be less. Okay. So right here, as we're dealing with non-probabilistic data, so that is going to be one of the inconveniences, the amount of data that you're going to get right here.
Teacher,
Yes.
how many, how huge or how huge should be the participants branch have? We have to present.
What?
We have to look
Once
for
again?
the participate branch from how many people?
Okay. So I guess you have entered late. Okay. As I was explaining before, it is going to be just considered, just for example, taking just the 60% of the population of the participants that you have already selected. So that is to say that, for example, if we're going to work with, let's say, 29 students, 29, damn it, 29 students, okay, so it is advisable to just use the 60% of these students, right? So you're going to be working with 17 students after all, right? So once again, if you're going to use 17 students, and you're going to answer, or they're going to answer, 17, they are going to answer an interview about 5 questions. So you're going to have 85 questions. That's it. So it's not going to be that hard in order to assimilate or to organize and categorize the answers related to one specific question. Okay, questions here. Got it? So it's going to be as easy as that. Okay, I think I have no more information to be covered here. But I'm not recording. I know, yes, I'm recording. And that's it. Okay, let's continue with this other one. Okay. Okay. So now, when talking about the qualitative research, the one that we're going to be focused, is going to be just related to this. So when talking about just the research, is going to be just related to the process in which you're going to seek for some answers. You're going to look for a solution inside a necessity. So therefore, we're going to work with something that is called qualitative research. So what is that? So the qualitative research, as you know, is going to be just even more focused on understanding social phenomena in a natural setting or a natural context. Right here, we're going to explain the meaning about something that is done inside a context, right? Or the experiences or the views of the participants. So all in all, what we're going to take into account in here is for us to describe or to answer questions about a particular localized occurrences or contexts that have been stipulated or stated inside your project. Okay. Now, as we're going to be focused even more on qualitative research, right? So the qualitative research, what you see right here is going to be just related to number one, to be centered on phenomenology and comprehension. So there's going to be a phenomenon that you have already described in your statement of the problem, and then you're going to see, for example, you're going to comprehend the way in which it works, in which it is created, and how this is going to be solved, right? Then we have exploratory, inductive, and descriptive. Well, it's bad written here. So yes, you're going to explore the theories, right? You're going to describe, okay, so you're going to explore both the problem and the theories, and some studies that are going to that have been stated what you already have said, right? This is going to be inductive and descriptive. And we're going to use right here a natural observation without control. Well, there's going to be a little control, but this control is going to be just the grids you're going to
Sorry,
state.
I'm sorry, teacher. What does mean inductive and descriptive?
Descriptive, one by one. In the process is going to be done one by one. Sorry, step by step. And inductive, it's going to be right here. Sorry. Here, that is going to be just you're going to supply evidences, right? You're going to tell that what you're working, that you're working under the statement of a theory, right? That you're not working just because you're discovering something and then you want to do it in an empirical way. No, you want to do it, or you're going to do it basing yourself inside a theory, right? And the quantitative research,
So,
yes,
so you said that we're going to supply evidences based on a theory.
yes, of course, what you have done
Based
in
on
the
a theory.
theoretical framework.
Okay. Okay.
Okay. Now, the quantitative research is going to be based on probabilistic induction of logic. What is that? That you're going to control your population, you're going to control the amount of data that you're going to gather. For example, if you're going to do, let's say, the way in which people are going to perceive a new flavor of ice cream, right? So let's say this new flavor of ice cream is going to be fish-like. Okay, so is it tasty? Is it good? Do you like it or you don't like it? So you have just two probabilities right here. That is called probabilistic, because you're going to control the amount of data that you're going to gather, right? So let's say from 100 people, 80 people, they said, no, we didn't like fish-like ice cream. And the other 20, they're going to say something like, yes, we liked it. Therefore, you have 80% of the population that say that approved the what? The flavor, versus a 20% of people that they do not approve the flavor, right? So that's it. That is going to be just probabilistic, versus the qualitative one that is going to be non-probabilistic, because every participant, every sample that you have, they're going to show you different kinds of results, even if you're using the same question. Example, why you why did you like the flavor? Let's talk about this part related to the to what to the fish like ice cream flavor. So let's say, why did you like the flavor? Oh, just because it's spicy, or it's because it's kind of weird. Oh, it tastes funny, right? So every person is going to give you a different answer related to a question, right? For example, if you're going to observe the behavior of people inside the classroom, right? So they're going to be different. For example, there are going to be people who are going to be sleepy. There are going to be people who are going to be paying attention all time long. There are going to be people that they do not pay attention, and they're going to be just using their cell phones in order to chat or do something else, playing video games inside the classroom, for example. Or there are going to be others that are going to be just, for example, using their cell phones in order to look for further information, to make valuable contributions inside the classroom. Therefore, we have four different types of students inside the classroom, but maybe this kind of four different types of students, they're going to react in a different way. So that is why we have no probabilistic sampling, right, inside the qualitative one. Okay, back to the quantitative research. Here it's a confirmatory, inferential, and deductive, right? So, deductive, as we saw, for example, inductive, that is going to be just responding to premises, information that is going to be supplied, supports. Right here, the deductive part, right here is going to be just related to trying to find the logic, right? Yes, so we're going to create, for example, we're going to try to find the logic inside something that we have stated. Here, questions. Okay, so tough figures can be maybe. So for example, logical part. Okay, let's say, what is going to be the logical part about flavors? So, for example, some people they have a kind of, I don't know, likes about fish, and some others they don't. Why? Because their habits. Boom, that's the logical part. Next issue.
Yeah, and they are deductive. I mean, they are deducting through the tables or figures,
Yep,
right?
yes, that's
They're
it.
exposed over the.
Easy as
Okay.
that. That's it. Very good. Okay, this is not. Okay. And here, you know that it's going to be controlled and penetrating medition. What is that? Because let's say I'm going to check, I'm going to look just for the reaction of this new kind of food, right? um, during this amount of time, let's say from 12 to 2 p.m., when people are eating lunch, having lunch, sorry, and then I'm going to give them this kind of dessert for them to try it, and I'm going to say if people liked it. How? I'm going to give them a little piece of paper in which they're going to find some questions. Let's say, for example, do you like the product, or did you sorry, or you didn't like the product? That's it. So you're going to measure that. So what is going to be controlled? You have only two answers. How are you going to measure this? Okay, from 100 people, you're going to know what are going to be just their reactions. And they're going to see, for example, you're going to try to imagine if it is acceptable or not. I'm talking about the product, right? But if you're going to see, for example, what is going to be the reaction of every people when they're eating the dessert is going to be different, right? Because now you're going to measure, or you're going to try to note this kind of behaviors. So if it's going to be just behavior, you need to do observation. So once again, for quantitative research, you're going to control your data. You don't need to observe, but for qualitative, you need to observe. Okay. Let's see some characteristics related to the qualitative research. So for the qualitative research, you're going to see these 5 elements in here. So for example, data sources are real world situations. Like what? Behaviors, points of view, voices, etc. Data are descriptive. What is that? Because you need, for example, the description of something inside a questionnaire, right? So the description of that something of that inside that questionnaire is going to give you, well, it's not questionnaire, it's going to be just an interview, right? It's going to give you more ideas or more items to be analyzed, and that's the key part of this. You need to analyze a lot. Therefore, you're going to emphasize on a holistic approach. What is a holistic approach? A holistic approach is going to be just that approach, or that part in which you're going to create a process, and then you're going to see which are going to be those outcomes. Okay? Okay.
So we're going to analyze the points of view of the ideas of the individuals we are analyzing.
Everything. So that is all holistic. You're going to analyze everything. So you're going to analyze their points of view. You're going to analyze the way what they answered. You're going to analyze behaviors. You're going to analyze everything that is going to be just related to a social behavior. And once again, the data analysis is inductive. So here you get all of that data, but you need to corroborate what you get inside the data, right? And sorry, you need to analyze what you get, talking about data, and what you have analyzed through the theory and through some other studies. Okay? And finally, yep. Okay, so you're going to describe the meaning of research findings from the perspective of the research participants. What is that? So based on the information you get from the participants, you're going to say if your objectives have been achieved or not, and in which way have these objectives been achieved. Okay. So let's see more information right here about the qualitative research methods. So what is going to be one of the characteristics related to the qualitative research methods? So number one, you're going to use this in order to interpret and better understand the complexity about a situation. So for example, the lack of materials in order to teach a class. Number one, the lack of preparation in order to do a better oral presentation. Number two, number three, for example, why some students are not very good skilled inside an advanced course for them to talk fluently, right? So something like that. Now, we're going to have right here, in order to gather data, or yeah, so three main ideas in order to gather this data. So for example, number one is going to be just participant observation, right? And we have non-participant observation. What is going to be participant observation? That you can modify the data, right? And you can interact with the sample or with the participants. For example, if I want to alter some information that I have got inside the what? Inside the come on, inside an activity, right? So you can interact with them for them to show you or for them to provide you more elements to be understood, right? In a non-participant observation, you're going to do is just purely observation. You're not going to interact, right? Then we have interviews. So interviews right here, they're going to be, for example, in-depth interviews. So what is going to be in-depth interviews? So you're going to talk about, you're going to talk with your group, right, with your sampling, and then you're going to ask a question or a couple of questions, or you're going to ask questions just when needed, and then they are going to, the participants, the sampling right here, they're going to have an interaction among themselves, and all that information is going to be just taken for you to analyze it later on. And then we have the groups. We have experimental groups and we have focus groups. The experimental groups are those in which, for example, you're going to conduct, in the case of action research, you're going to conduct some activities, or you're going to implement some activities, and you're going to see the reactions. But you're not going to do a following up process for you to see if these students are going to, this participants, sorry, are going to be affected or not. But in the focus group, what you're going to do is to measure, number one, what they have done in the experimental group, and to see if in the experimental group there were some flaws or some weaknesses. And here in the focus group, what you're going to do is the best version of your activities in order for you to gather more relevant data, right? But this is going to be just in the case in which you're going to work with action research. For case study is another different idea, right? The good part of the qualitative research is that this is going to be flexible, right? Because, for example, you can we can talk with your participants, right? And you're going to tell them, for example, okay, when can we meet for us to do this interview? Well, maybe tomorrow. That maybe is going to give you that flexibility, right? Number one. Number two, for example, you're asking a question, and then you think immediately when implementing the interview that maybe you can add an extra question. So you can ask it. So flexibility, right? Or you can interact even more with your participants. Flexibility, right? And that's it.
Teacher,
Yes?
and the general flexibility in this case can be applied the questionnaires also in another language, for example, in Spanish,
Yeah, yes, of course.
and then translate.
Yes, it could be, for example, we're going to talk about in terms of flexibility. Let's say that you're creating your project in English, right? But your participants are native Spanish speakers. Therefore, you need to ask the questions in Spanish for you to gather high quality answers, right? So in that way, it could be considered as a flexible idea too. Okay. Now,
Okay.
related to the questions, we're going to talk about open-ended questions, right? Why? Because you need to understand the whole topic about what you're going to give a solution. Easy as that, right? So, for example, let's talk about some like a question I saw a couple of days ago, and this question was related to, let's say, um, what is your point of view related to the teacher's methodology implemented inside the classroom, right? Okay, you're going to get ready for you to gather an infinite number of answers, right? Okay, it could be just, for example, 4 participants, but in the end, you don't know which are going to be just the answers. But in the case you're going to create, for example, a quantitative item, let's say, do you like your teacher's methodology when implementing an activity inside the classroom? Yes or no? Boom, that's it. So that's the quantitative part. You know what you're going to expect. You know the probabilities, right? So that's going to be just a probabilistic sampling. But in the case of qualitative, you don't know what is going to happen. So that is going to be non-probabilistic. Okay? So that's it. But you can use in the qualitative research, you can use, for example, questions that they can start, for example, in a quantitative way, but the support is going to be done um, as a, mm, as a qualitative one. Example: do you like your teacher's methodology? Yes or no? Support your answer. Okay, even better. So, yeah, if yes, why do you like it? If no, why don't you like it? So, even more,
Or just what do you think about your teacher's method?
that's it. All right, that's it. But still, you know that you're going to control that question, right? But you don't know which are going to be just the variables inside that question. Example: why do you like your teacher's methodology? Okay, because he understands that every person has a different learning level. Or no, I don't like it because he's kind of rude when giving the feedback, right? Or yes, I like it. Why? Because he or she are very dynamic. And no, because the methodologies tends to be traditional. See over there the amount of data that I'm just creating because I yes and no and the reasons why you think that. So it's going to be like that.
So in our case, we can say something like, well, for example, ask to a student, have you ever feel inhibition in class or something like that? I mean, I guess that we have to explain those terms, or we can just say, why you didn't speak today in class, or why during the week you didn't talk, or why you didn't interact with the teacher. And he will say that he was feeling anxious, he felt terrified,
That's it.
and then we can infer what happened in there,
That's it. So the
right?
next step over there is to organize the data. Okay. So you're going to organize the data in order to see, for example, which are going to belong to one group, or in which way you're going to group a set of answers, right? And that's it. So, for example, which are going to be just the advantages and disadvantages about the qualitative research. Okay, so for the qualitative research, you're going to get a lot of data to be analyzed, right? in a natural setting. So this is going to be very rich for us to what to be sorry, yeah. So this, you're going to find right here rich information, right? So you can analyze it. You can see, for example, patterns inside one answer and the other. But the bad part of this is going to be time consuming, right? Because you need to observe a lot of things. Yeah, with rich information, but in the end, time consuming. Okay. So, for example, right here, another advantage um, is that, for example, the answers or the information you're going to get, um, what is this? For example, another advantage is going to be something related to no recall error, right? Because you're going to ask question, or you're going to ask questions, sorry, or you're going to observe, and you're going to see what is happening over there, the real part of this, right? Uh, but let's take this part as a limitation, right? As a disadvantage, because there's going to be a problem of refusal, or that people are not going to be at home, or are going to be difficult to be found. Maybe the answers are going to be totally true, right? And that's it. So this may be not representative, okay? So it's going to be like that. That's the main issue, or the main limitation here. Okay, and that's all. So, for example, the advantages of this right here, for example, we continue with this virtual issue, is that one of the advantages is that you can send the question, and they're going to answer that to you in an asynchronous way, right? So meaning not now, but later, right? And another limitation right here is going to be just the difficulty in determining root cause of behavior. Because human beings sometimes they do not show their real intentions, their real behaviors, and sometimes they're just faking something, right? So you don't know if the information you're gathering is going to be just 100% reliable or not, right? So that's the bad issue about here. So what is going to be just advised for you to tell to your participants is tell them to tell the truth. Okay. You have you have already done this part. For example, write a tentative research proposal. This is what we're writing, right? We're in the second chapter. The third chapter is going to be just what is going to be worked during these weeks. There's going to be an intensive participation in a field setting. You need to observe, you need to conduct interviews, and you're going to write a journal, right? A reflective journal, because you need entries, you need input. Easy as that. Number 3 is collect detailed data from field activities. I already told which were those activities. Synthesize and interpret the meaning of the field data and write the research report. These are going to be just the two most tedious issues for them to be done. So, for example, you're going to synthesize and interpret an answer. So, for example, let's say, do you like your teacher's methodology? Don't take it personally. It's just the first thing that came to my mind. Okay. So, do you like your teacher's methodology? No. Why? Because that teacher tends to create, or tends to show, or tends to provide minimal explanations, and we all have to, and we what we have to do, or all we have to do, is to look information on internet. And as there are a lot of information uh, Yeah, a lot of information on the internet. We don't know which information is the most reliable. And the teacher, what he says is like no matter the information you find, that is crucial for you to understand something. You need to analyze that. So from all of those 100 words, let's say that, what's the point about that, right? How to categorize that idea? So that's the issue that you have to take into account here. Okay. The following points, some issues about the qualitative research is gaining entries. What is that? So, for example, what happens if nobody answers your interview? What happens if you don't get the permission in order to have access to a class? That's one of the most difficult issues for you to deal with. Then again, contacting potential research participants. Do you want to be part of my research? No. Okay, next. Easy and simple as that. Cruel, yes, because the nature of human beings is to be cruel in that way. But there are going to be some other people that are going to tell you, yes, but I don't have a lot of time to spend in the sorry to spend in this research, right? And there are going to be some others that they're going to tell you like, okay, perfect, I'm in. Simple as that. The other ways going to be, for example, selecting the participants. I already told you the ways for you to select your participants, but how do you know that sampling method is going to be the best for you? And in which way are you going to explain that? Then, enhancing validity and reducing bias. Reducing bias, sorry. So, for example, you're going to enhance the validity because you need to send all your observation grids and your questions related to your interviews to experts in order to tell them if those questions are pertinent or not, or if you need to do changes inside your instruments, right? Easy as that. And finally, leaving the field because you're not going to force your participants for them to be part of your research. Once they want to leave, they leave, period. So let's see right here what is going to be just the design about this. So number one, you need to choose your research design, right? So, sorry, your research approach. What is your research approach? The approach is going to be qualitative, quantitative, or mixed, period. And what is going to be the research design? Aha! So we have right here 6 different research designs. We have single case analysis. We have document analysis. We have action research. You have field research. You have qualitative experiment, or we have qualitative evaluation experiment. And inside that, the case analysis or the case analysis could be taken like a case study analysis or case study, right? Which one are you going to choose? The one you see is going to be the most pertinent. So that is why homework, you're going to start writing what is going to be just, well, as I told you like 1 week ago. Yeah, last Monday, I told you to start looking information about what was going to be the best research approach and the best research design for you to gather the data, right? In short, we're going to see this. So what is going to be just the qualitative research? So the qualitative research has to be with investigation about people's lives, lived experiences, behaviors, emotions, and feelings, right? So, qualitative research is any research, it's going to be conducted using an observational technique or unstructured questioning. Because unstructured is going to be, for example, when you have a set of questions, but what if you need to add some more questions while implementing the interview, for example? It should not be viewed as a conclusive research. No, this is not going to give you some conclusions. Yes, the conclusions are going to be based on your observation, of your objectives, sorry. But this is not going to be the last word. This is not going to be the ultimate theory. No. This is going to give you some ideas, or these are going to provide contributions for the real world, right? And then qualitative and quantitative research are complementary to each other. So, okay, what if you need numbers and qualifications? What if you need percentages and interpretations about the percentages? I'm talking about mixed research, okay? So these two are viewed as a soft approach. So what is that? So as you see right here, when structured research is not possible, when true response may not be available, and to explain qualitative research results, right? All in all, qualitative is more flexible and quantitative is kind of flexible. It's not going to be that flexible, okay? Nice. Here you can see, for example, a calendar, because you need to create a schedule for your activities. So we're going to, another homework, you're going to look for next semester's academic chronogram for you to see the way in which we are going to start creating your instruments, validating your instruments, and so on. I'm going to give you an idea on what to do, okay? And that's it. I'm going to provide you this information after this class, or as soon as I can. Am I still recording? Yes. Okay. So I think I have talked about, all in all, or in short, about what qualitative and qualitative research is. Okay. As I told you last time, this is the one that I want to finish with. As I told you last time, you needed to look for the approach that fits the best for your necessities. So guys, which are those approach? Sorry, are we going to have a schedule before the semester wraps? Yep. Yes, we're going to have the schedule. We need to create a tentative schedule. Can it be changed? Yes, it is going to be changed. How? When we start the semester, we're going to see how these are going to be changed, right? As a personal experience, for example, when I was creating my research, I had to change my schedule like 5 times, right? So, but for now, we need to create a possible schedule for you to do it, for you to work next semester, okay? And that's it. And the university has created its own schedule. So based on that schedule, we're going to keep on working, okay? Good. Okay, now I'm going to finish in this 20 minutes with this part because I know that this one from Diaz de Figueredo, 2010. It's an amazing document that you can use about qualitative research, right? But this is going to be even more focused for information sciences and technologies, but still, it's really useful. Well, I think I'm going to jump. I'm going to do something like a fast review about quantitative and qualitative methods and a typical qualitative research approach. We're going to talk about a little bit about qualitative research methods, right here, like here. The data connection techniques, data analysis techniques, maybe a little fast, right? Triangulation and mixed methods research and reliability and validity, but I'm going to cover these 4 items first, right? Okay, so by taking this into account, we're going to take into account some little aspects. Number one, that the quantitative method is going to be just associated with numbers, right? With probabilistic data, sampling, sorry. So what is going to be like that? That you're going to control all your data, you're going to control all the scenario, versus the qualitative methods in which you're going to use non-probability issues, right? And then again, we're going to talk about the mixed method. So what is going to be the mixed method? It's going to be just the fusion between the quantitative and the qualitative data, right? So in order to talk about that, the quantitative methods are going to just be related to mathematical bias, okay? The mathematical logic, right? We're going to use a statistical analysis. And as I told you before, when we're talking about probabilistic data, it is because we're talking about what this kind of probabilistic data that is going to be just limited data, right? Because you're going to control the whole thing right here, right? And this is not going to be depending on external factors, right? So, for example, do you like the new brand? Sorry, do you like this new chocolate? Yes or no? That's it. Pure and simple like that. Well, the qualitative data is going to be just even more focused on the social and human sciences, right? And just related to, how can I say this? The behavior, points of view about what a human being has about a particular topic, right? And that's it. As you see right here, you're going to have much richer results. Why? Because far beyond a yes or a no, you're going to find some dimensions. You're going to find some voices, right? When I'm talking about voices, I'm talking about points of view, right? And that's it. Okay. This is not important. This is not. This is not. Okay. So how to start creating or how to deal with the approach based on Berg 2007. So we're going to create the ideas, then we're going to follow with the literature review, then we're going to continue with the design, then the data collection, then the analysis, and then the dissemination, right? But let's start one by one. You see right here that we have some arrows, some directions, and these directions are going to give you a clue on what to do. For example, when you start your idea, you're going to say, for example, okay, I'm going to start with a problem related to autonomous learning in order to what? Autonomous learning for the improvement of oral production, right? But how can I do that? Is it a case study or is it and action research. So boom, we're going here to the design, right? So once we have created the design, we're going to say, for example, oh, case study. You need to look information about two things. Number one, the ideas. Number two, the design. Okay. So you start looking about information about the design. You start looking information about the theory and the literature review. Boom. So it's going to be like that. Okay. Now, once we have dealt with this information, 1, 2, 3, right here. You see right here. This is going to be something like a continuous circle. So let's say once it's going to be just the design, right? We're going to restructure the whole thing related to the literature review, and then we're going to see if it works with our ideas or not. Example. Let's say this is going to be just information talking about autonomous learning, but autonomous learning for the written production. So is it useful or not? That's the thing we have to think of, right? Okay. So then again, we're going to see what is happening right here. Once we have created the design, we're going to talk about the data collection process. So what is going to be that data collection process? That data collection process is going to say, for example, the instruments. If you're going to use observation, interviews, questionnaires, whatever. And then we have the analysis, right? So how are you going to work with analysis? Based on the information you have collected with your instruments, right? And then again, you're going to the design in order for you to see the way in which you need to adapt your data based on the designs, if it's going to be case study or action research or phenomenology or whatever, right? Then we go right here to the analysis, and then we go to the dissemination. What is going to be the dissemination? The dissemination is going to be something like the conclusions you already have and the contributions you're going to provide to the academic world. So here, the ideas are going to be turned, so as a summary, the ideas are going to be turned into research questions. The literature review is going to improve your learning, your knowledge about the topic, about the situation, about the need, about the problem, and about the way in which you're going to cover it. The design is going to be just the plan that you have created for you to obtain the data and for you to what? To select the sample, and that's it, right? The data collection and organization is for you to create your instruments, and after creating the instruments, the way in which you're going to implement those instruments and the kind of data you're going to obtain and how to organize that data. Then we're going to work with the analysis of the data, in which we're going to have three main ideas. Number one, data reduction, because you're going to have a lot of data to be analyzed. So what to do? Easy peasy, lemon squeezy. Try to synthesize as much as possible the information you have gathered, right? So once you have synthesized that information, you can gradually create, let's say, categorize or create groups for you to understand what is happening over there. So therefore, we're entering into the stage of coding, right? Then data display. So once you have organized all the data and you have compressed all those ideas, which are going to be similar, let's say, you're going to create those codes in order for you to draw some conclusions, some preliminary conclusions, or some conclusions after in the end, right? And then you're going to check if those conclusions or those results are answering at 100% or at a kind of percentage or not at all your objectives. And finally, you have the dissemination. So, for example, you have created your project, and what's the point for you to create a project? So you created that and you got the grade. Period. Now you're going to create that because you want to show the world that you have discovered something, and that something is going to be the contribution from you to the world. Finally, we have the qualitative research methods. So we have case studies, ethnographic research, ground of theory, action research, or design-based research. Right? Okay. Case study. What is a case study? You have looked for information about that. So what is case study?
Teacher, is a form of cognitive research that is focused on providing in a detailed account of one or more cases.
Yeah, it's going to be like that.
But also, it exists an intrinsic case study that is a specific case, also a qualitative research to describe a program and to evaluate how effectively it operates.
That's it. All in all, the case study. Yes. Continue.
Also, it's often used in exploratory research in which the researcher attempts to learn about a little-known phenomenon.
Okay. Yeah, it's going to be like that. All in all, what you have to take into account with a case study is that you're going to prove something. Easy as that. You're going to prove if, for example, this necessity is going to be covered, if this aspect is not going to be covered, if, for example, an activity that was implemented by the teacher worked. All in all, it's going to be like that, okay? Now, what is going to be an ethnographic research? What is an ethnographic research? Yoo-hoo! What is an ethnographic research? No? Okay, actually, an ethnographic research right here is going to be just that research in which you're going to be immersed inside a specific group, right? During a specific time. So, for example, let's say I would like to see which are going to be the behaviors in terms of communication and education related to the Motilon Bari groups. So you're going to require at least 2 years living with them for you to see which are going to be just their behaviors towards the communication and related to the educational model, right? It's going to be like that. The grounded theory. What is going to be grounded theory? What do you think about grounded theory? Guys, are you there? Okay, here. Blah, 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 blah. Detailed analysis of the grounded theory, the construction of theories. Yes, the grounded theory right here is going to be just, for example, creating a new
And
theory.
we begin since the main one. We begin them since the main one.
Main one about what?
About the main theory. I
Okay.
mean,
Well,
ground.
yes and no. The grounded theory right here is going to be just a theory that you're going to get from the ground. So you're going to experiment right here. So you're going to say, for example, let's say something like, what if in my class I start to give, for example, fives every time a student participates, and this participation is going to be relevant to the class. I'm going to see if that happens. Yes, that is going to be just behaviorism, right? So I'm going to create my own theory, but from the ground, right? As we see right here, the researcher categorizes empirically collected data in order to build a general theory that fits the data, right? So you're going to see how the data has been gathered or has been obtained just because you have created a new model, you have created a new theory, right? Action research. So the action research right here is going to be just related to the following perspective. You plan, you act, and then you reflect, and then again you go back to the beginning, right? So all in all, action research related to John Dewey is called the principle of intelligent action. Why? Because if I plan something and if I implement that something, I'm going to say if it was good or not. And then we're going to say if it was good, okay, I'm going to implement it again, but in a version 2.0 for us to see improvements, right? But if it didn't work, what we're going to do is to design again the whole thing and to see which were those flaws, those bad issues, and then we're going to see if this part or this action research is going to have a new perspective, right? The design-based research, right, is going to be something like it says that the knowledge is built in successive approximations while designing, building, and evaluating an artifact. So right here, this is going to be, for example, when you need to measure something, but let's put it in this way. So let's say you're going to see what is going to be the problem about, right? Then you're going to see, for example, some suggestions. So how to solve it. So let's say the objectives of the questions. Then you're going to see the development, right? So if it is working and how this is not working. And then the evaluation process for you to gather the conclusion. So right here, the most important issue, one of the most important issues right here is going to be just the evaluation, right? While in the others, you're going to collect data, you're going to interpret the data and synthesize the data. Right here, what we're going to see is to evaluate. In the evaluation process, you're going to say, for example, oh, this worked and this didn't work. So let's leave aside those issues that didn't work and let's be focused on those which worked. and that's it. Okay. Okay. For next class, because we have already finished this time, I would like you to start writing your own ideas related to the qualitative research you're going to implement based on Creswell 2007, 2012, 2014, I think. I'm not pretty sure. And then Christensen and Burke Johnson, 2014. And I think there's going to be another book that is called Metodología de la Investigación by Fernandez, Hernandez, and Baptista, 2012, if I'm not wrong, for you to start adding information in this third chapter. And no, that's all. Sandra, what's the difference between intrinsic case study and instrumental case study? Nice question. You're going to solve that question for next class because I need to go to a meeting right now. A meeting by Visa Victoria Académica, and it starts now. So look for that information because we're going to see next class some other aspects related to cases study, right? And the way they're going to be solved. So look for that information over there, right? But still, I needed to look forward to be focused on number one, the approach, and number two, the design. Okay? Okay, guys, so thanks for coming, and no, that's all.